On today's episode, we're sitting down with Mikah Goldman Berg, a perinatal mental health advocate whose personal experience inspired her to become a peer mentor, a support group facilitator, and eventually a staff member supporting PSI's national chapters. Although I met Mikah while volunteering in PSI's peer mentor program, I'd actually never heard much of what she'll share with us today until we hit record. Today, we'll hear about how Mikah navigated anxiety, bipolar disorder, and OCD, among other things, in the perinatal period, and how those experiences paved the way for making meaningful connections with others. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the I Am One podcast are the speaker's own. Tuning into this podcast is not a replacement for therapy or any other form of professional help. Our discussions cover personal stories of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and may feel triggering to some listeners. Your number one priority is to take care of yourself. So if you are in need of help, please reach out to the PSI helpline by calling or texting HELP to 1-800-944-4773 for help in English and in Spanish. At PSI, we want you to know you are not alone, you are not to blame, and with help, you will be well. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. Mikah, hello, friend. Welcome to the pod.
Hello, friends.
We're so happy that you're here with us and we get to spend some time with you today.
It's the best.
This is the best.
It is.
This is so fun hanging
Mhm.
out with people and getting to just chat about feelings. It's my jam.
Yeah, I understand why.
Yeah. So we're excited to hear about your lived experience and share your story. So without any further ado, could you please give us a little bit of an intro to who you are?
Sure. Hi, all. My name is Mikah, and I currently work for PSI. I work with my amazing colleague. I mean, all of you are amazing, but my colleague Jen Davis, and we help support our PSI chapters across the country. And if you can believe it, when I was a little girl, I didn't grow up and think, oh my God, I really want to work for PSI. I came here through like lived experience. And another lifetime ago, I worked in informal education. I worked for a Holocaust, Genocide, and Human Rights Education Center, then moved to DC and worked for an organization where I did some advocacy stuff with teens from across the country, went to grad school, did some more advocacy stuff, got married, had a really hard time with all of the like getting to be pregnant and like perinatal periods with both of my girls. Yeah. And it kind of just like changed my life and changed my trajectory.
I find that very relatable.
Yeah. Yes. I think this is just natural. Can you give us a little bit more of just some insight into how perinatal mood and anxiety disorders have touched your life personally?
I'm going to back up a bit. All right. So
let's back up.
I'm going to beep, back it up. Yeah. Okay. Mental health stuff runs in my family. So when I was 17, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, probably in a way that unfortunately is not uncommon, in that like you see a therapist, they refer you to a psychiatrist, you know, they're like, oh man, you like sound really depressed. Like, let me put you on an SSRI. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know if I want to take medication, all of the things. And I was like little, like I was like 16, I think, when this whole process started.
Baby. Yeah. And
I remember my mom was like, maybe you should try taking like St. John's wort. And I was like, sure. And like, obviously that didn't help either. But the psychiatrist that I was seeing at the time put me on Prozac, and I didn't fully understand what like mania was, what it looked like. And like, I don't think my mom did either. My mom was a single mom, had 3 kids. It's like it was a lot to deal with for a long time. And like would have like these manic episodes and didn't know that was happening. And then like fell into a depression and like would go back and be like, this medication's like not working. It's just not. And then they like kept upping my dosage Prozac until I went into psychosis and then had to be hospitalized. I remember walking into my guidance counselor's office in high school and like not being able to like articulate, like I was like, there's something wrong with me. And like, I don't know how to explain this. Mm-hmm. And they sent me back to class. And like the next day I was hospitalized.
So that was when you were 17.
That was when I was 17. And it was just a lot to deal with as a teenager. And my medication didn't get straightened out until my second hospitalization in college when I was 20. And then finally, I think, well, maybe it was before then, but my parents were finally like, so not all psychiatrists like know how to deal with bipolar disorder. And we need to find somebody who like specializes in this. And they did. And he saved my life. I mean, he's amazing.
Wow.
And as soon as I like,
I just got chills.
oh yeah. I mean, we used to like email like a little, like as I got older and then we lost touch, but he used to call me his bipolar poster child. Yeah, I know,
Okay.
right? I'm one bipolar poster child.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like it.
But like as soon as my meds got straightened out, like I think most of the stuff with bipolar disorder, like all of those like symptoms of like, I don't know. I mean, aside from the mania, but like, you know, like being careful about how much I was spending or like all of the other things that, you know, people like think of when they think of bipolar disorder, kind of like, it just kind of like settled down. And I was like, wow, this is giving me a totally new perspective on like my life and like, and like, it wasn't an easy process because I think a lot of the medications have terrible side effects, right? Like they make you gain weight, they make you tired. So like I was non-compliant with a lot of medications. And actually, I think I turned into a better advocate for myself because before I tried a new medication, I was always like, okay, real talk, like what's going to happen when I take this? How long do I have to give this? If these things are happening, like when am I like, whoa, like this is not, I'm just not taking this. So I think that that's something that I learned very early on, is how to advocate for myself with my medical team.
I have a question.
Yes.
We are serendipitously, perhaps, recording this on Postpartum Psychosis Awareness Day.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your going into psychosis, like because you were on a medication that was for someone who's depressed, not for someone who is having mood swings at both ends of the spectrum, right? So, and I think that like psychosis experience looks so unique and different for each person. So in hindsight, what would today Mikah have told then Mikah to look out for? Like what were some of the early signs?
That's a really, that's fine. It's a, you know, Emily, I don't really know. Like, I kind of feel like a lot of that time I have like mentally blocked out, and a lot of it is a blur because I think it was really traumatic. And I kind of like put that time from like 17 to like 20, 21 when I got into my meds as like this like time where I was like not myself. Like, I couldn't even tell you, like when people are like, oh yeah, you like went to Rutgers, who were you friends with? Like, I don't remember. Like, like I went to class, like finally when my meds got straightened out, I was like, I went to class, I went home, like I was involved in swimming, but like it just is not, like it's just not something I can recall. So for sure it was.
That's a valid answer, that it was a period of time that because there was a lot of things happening. Also, let's not discount the fact that like being a teenager and a young adult generally is difficult. So like you're adding that layer on top of all of this that like you don't remember. And that's, can we just say out loud that that's okay? Like if there are things that you don't remember, that's okay.
Yeah. I think it is okay. I mean, but like to your, like there are things that I remember in terms of like hearing things or believing things that were like for sure not true. And I think I like eventually had to tell my mom, I'm like, I'm hearing voices in my head, and she didn't quite know what to do with that. You know, she by trade, not anymore, but like worked with kids with special needs in high school and was like, oh my God, I deal with kids who have this and like didn't see it in my own kid. Like, how is this even possible? And I think, I don't know, I think that she was really shocked, and like, cause I was trying to like hold it all together and like, I just couldn't, and I just kind of broke. So yeah, it was like a really hard rebuilding of myself process that took a lot of, I don't know, I started seeing a therapist, I think it was in college, and like my meds were still not straightened out. I think it was like in between like one of the bad psychiatrists moving to my new psychiatrist who was like, all right, like let's think about this. And you know, my therapist was like, psychopharmacology is like kind of more of an art than a science. So
everybody reacts differently, right?
Everybody reacts differently. Like you never know, like this cocktail that works for you is like not necessarily the thing that's going to like work for somebody else. So And that was really true. And my psychiatrist that I finally started to see put me on a medication that like wasn't normally used for bipolar disorder. He has like this whole theory that bipolar disorder and epilepsy, which he actually has, are kind of like connected. And that's why some epilepsy medications. So I ended up on like, that's one of my main mood stabilizers, an epilepsy medication. And thank God for him. Thank God that he tried that. I think there's like a medical paper about me out there someplace about that medication working for bipolar disorder. I'm very famous. Yeah.
No big deal. Humble brag. I'm in a research paper. Peer reviewed.
In a research paper. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. All right. Let's fast forward. So, right. So like,
way to keep us on track, Mikah. Who's running the show?
We can talk about whatever you want to.
Great. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I like went through all of the dating things, like moved to DC, like, oh my gosh, I remember I think disclosing that I have bipolar disorder when I was dating people was like difficult because I think it is really like a sensationalized like chronic illness, right? That people are like, oh my God, like she's crazy. And like, I think it's really funny because like I started going to therapy when I was like 15 and still go now. So like I used to date people and I'd be like, wait, I'm the crazy one? Like what is like people have like life stuff they don't deal with, right? And like I have dealt with the life stuff. I'm dealing with like this chronic illness and I'm like, whoa, you guys like really don't have your shit together. Bye, kind of thing.
Perspective.
You're a little bit worried about how people will take your disclosure, but you're like, whoa. I'm the one who's actually have my stuff together.
Together. Yeah. I really have my together, right? Like I think as soon as like totally. And it was like something I was like always very careful about my sleep. I like was careful about, swimming has always been a really big part of my life. And that's like kind of one of my things that I like my default for.
Like open water swimming. Speaking
that's
of
a more
humble
recent
brag,
thing.
total bad. You know what?
That is a more recent thing, Danny.
Oh,
so
is it really? Okay.
Yeah. So I competitively swam starting in 4th grade through like all of the years. Yeah. And then when COVID hit and all of my master's swim team that met at the Y.
Oh yeah.
Wait,
they
which
closed
Y?
The pool.
The
YMCA in Silver Spring.
Yeah. Okay, because I was on the Masters team in Ellicott City for like a long time.
I stay on land.
You stay on land. Yeah, you do a lot of hiking that like I would never do. So
right.
I'm a water person. Yeah. So the pool's closed, and like a lot of the people on my master swim team already did open water swimming. And like, I remember when I first joined, they were like, you're a long distance swimmer. Like you'd really love open water swimming. And I'm like, you are crazy. Yeah. I hated going to summer camp because there was a lake. Like I did not want to get in the lake. It is disgusting. So I sucked it up hard and I was like, I have to swim. I just have to swim. And so I live like in the DC suburbs, like on the Maryland side, and there's a couple places to go open water swimming. I ended up going to this place in Annapolis where the coach is freaking awesome. She swam the English Channel. Like she is
no big deal.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
She is so awesome. And like, she's just like really positive too. And I'm like terrified there on like my first day and the water's like, I don't know, like 50 something degrees. And I'm like in like my sleeveless wetsuit. And I don't know, I like got into the water and I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. And it like gives you this whole perspective of like how you're like, I don't know, like everybody has their own issues and, stuff going on in their life. But like when you're in nature or in the water and in the middle of something that is so much larger than you, surrounded by like trees and beauty and like all of this stuff, it just gives you like I don't know, like this like spiritual like boost in life. And like, it's just something that I like really fell in love with. And yeah, so I have just been doing it, since 2020.
Okay. So.
Oh, yes.
So you were diagnosed bipolar pre even meeting your husband, right?
Yeah.
So then you're in the dating game, you're disclosing this like huge vulnerability. Go you, by the way.
Thanks. I mean, it's like a big part of like what I have to deal with. I mean, it like doesn't supersede who I am as a person, but like, it's still something like it's something I have to monitor for the rest of my life. It's just kind of like anything that, you know, somebody has like a chronic illness of some kind. So yeah, so I disclose it to him and he's like, cool. Like, what? Yeah, like bipolar disorder runs in his family. I don't think he had like fully a sense of like what it could look like. But yeah. And he knew I was like very protective about my sleep. And he was in law school at the time. And I remember he used to stay up like really late or like go out with friends late. And he'd be like, come. And I'm like, no, like my cutoff is like 11. Like also like I'm working. So my cutoff is 11. Yeah. So that was like an adjustment and we had to like think about that or like, and he's like very protective of my sleep now. He's like, did you take your sleep meds? Like, did you get enough sleep? Like, how'd you sleep last night? Cause like, I think not getting enough sleep is like a huge trigger for me. And he knows that. Yeah.
Shout out to Alex.
Shout out to Alex like, for being an incredible advocate for you.
Yes, totally.
Like, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, so like I like was like, can we like get a dog? And I remember like one of our first dates, he's like, I want 4 kids. I was like, slow your roll there, buddy.
Well then.
Yeah. And I like in addition to having bipolar disorder, I have PCOS. So like I knew getting pregnant was like going to be, I don't know what kind of challenge it was going to be, but I knew it was not going to be like easy peasy lemon squeezy. It just wasn't going to be that way.
For those who don't know, can you tell us what PCOS is?
Sure. So it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, and your, I guess, adrenal glands in your body like set off like testosterone and like other hormones that like make it your period really irregular, or like some people gain weight from it. Like there's all, and you also like you just don't ovulate. Like I used to have a lot of like anovulatory like periods, and just like it just I just knew. And also was on birth control for like a really long time and like didn't even know what that would look like. So I I just wasn't ovulating. So I needed to eventually, like after my OB was like, I think we need to like bump you up to like a fertility clinic. Like, I don't know what else to do here.
How long were you trying before that? Yeah.
We were trying, I want to say probably for like over 6 months or like something like that. And like, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a super long time. Also, this is another place in which I advocated for myself. I was like, this situation like isn't working. And I was like, I don't think you know what you're doing. Yeah.
I'm going to need a specialist, okay?
I'm going to need a specialist.
Can I talk to the manager, please?
Can I talk to your manager? Yes. I was like, I was taking like my basal body temperature every morning. Like it was like all over the place, which is very common with with PCOS. So So then like we went to a fertility clinic and they were like, yeah, no problem. Like this is usually what happens. Like they told us the different stages. And I was like, thankfully a very easy case of like they were monitoring my follicle growth. Alex had to give me a shot. It all worked out. It was like the first go around. So I didn't even have to do anything else. Yeah. But so let's back up a little bit. So when I decided that I wanted to get pregnant, or that was thinking about it, I was also seeing in DC a psychiatrist that specialized in bipolar disorder. And he was like, he was part of this practice at GW. And he was like, great. Like, I need to move you to a different psychiatrist. And I was like, whoa. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, I mean, there is a reproductive psychiatrist that's part of this office. I would feel more comfortable you seeing her. And I could, if she has questions like specific to like your case or bipolar disorder or whatever, like I'm happy to be there as like a part of the team, but like this is not in my wheelhouse. Like pregnancy is it's just not in my wheelhouse. So, yeah, it was, but at the time I was terrified. Oh. Yeah, totally. I mean, like I am very privileged, right? Like to know what resources I need and for people to tell me that, what, if I don't know something, like what I do need to know. Yeah. So I moved over to seeing a reproductive psychiatrist, and Alex and I went to go talk to her about like my meds, like what was safe, what's not safe, like what to expect. And, I don't think she used the word like perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, but she was like, you're at higher risk. So we just need to we're going to have a plan in place, right? Like if they're like, I at first was like wanting to like see a midwife at GW, and she was like, nope, that's not where you're going. You are going to Georgetown because you are at higher risk for postpartum psychosis. I know the medical team there, and I want you to give birth at Georgetown in case you need to be hospitalized. And I was like, oh, okay. It just was like kind of like, all right, you're going to stay on these meds. These are meds we're going to have to take you off of. And like the plan for after pregnancy was like, who is part of your tribe here? Like, who's going to be with you? Like, let's make sure all of these things are in place so that there are like no surprises. And if I think back on the experiences with both my girls, right, like that tribe, that team was in place, and I had an immense amount of support. So then I think when I got pregnant with my first daughter, and like women with PCOS also have like a higher risk of miscarriage. So I was terrified that I would have to go through this process again, that I would have to get off my sleep meds again. Like I just was like terrified, and like had anxiety to the point where like I think I didn't like leave the house. I like didn't leave our apartment for a while. Yeah, it was like a lot, and it was not an easy pregnancy. I hate being pregnant and like do not recommend it unless you like really want
0 stars. Do not recommend.
I do not recommend.
Twinkle fingers on that one.
Yeah,
I agree. I do not like being pregnant.
It was so hard. It was so uncomfortable. Just the sheer amount of vomit that came out of my body. I'm like, it was awful. And then like the smells, like all of the smells, like why do they all smell awful? Like
even the normal things, the things you used to love.
Yes. Yeah. Awful.
Just made you feel nauseous. Just couldn't handle it. Oh no.
Could not handle it. So when I got pregnant with Naomi, we were living in an apartment in downtown Silver Spring at the time, and I had bought like poopery for like the toilet, which
yes.
You're supposed to spray.
We'll drop a link in the show notes for you. That stuff's awesome.
But you're supposed to spray it on the toilet before you poop, right?
Yeah, it creates a film over the top of the water. Duh, traps the. Never mind.
It traps
this is a different
the smell in. Yeah, but I could tell when somebody sprayed it afterwards, and I like,
you're doing it wrong. That's not how you do it.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just a terrible pregnancy, and like I was really also like excited for it. And I think that was like my first encounter with like a peer support group, because there was like some. It doesn't exist anymore, but in DC, there was like the support group for Jewish women who were going through infertility, but then were pregnant. There was like a social worker who like ran the group. The women in the group I love still, even though I don't see them very often. And I like basically went through every other week, and I was like, I am terrified. I'm terrified. Also, I hate being pregnant like anybody else here. So I forgot why I had to go like in for like extra checkups, but like one of the ultrasounds at like 37 weeks, which Alex ended up coming with me with, they were like, your amniotic fluid is low and you're having a baby today. And I was like, what? No.
Lies.
No.
I have 3 more weeks. That's not what I was told.
I have 3 more weeks. But also...
Okay, so you've been told 37 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you've got a bag
weeks.
Or not, this baby's coming today.
Of course.
Were you allowed to go home and get a bag?
We had to go home and pack our stuff. This is actually one of my favorite stories that like, okay, so like I don't even know what I'm throwing into this bag, whatever. And then Alex is like packing, and we like get to the hospital, and he packed a first aid kit.
You never know.
He's
Safety first.
Listen, someone might get a paper cut. I've got it.
If anybody needs some Neosporin, Alex is your man. He's got you covered.
Okay, but wait, I want to talk for a second about this packing the bag thing, because if my memory is serving me correctly, there are some Jewish traditions around like not jinxing things. And right.
Yes.
So like,
yes.
Was the not packing a bag also sort of a
I think it totally
thing?
Yeah, totally. I mean, my mom took me shopping for the baby, but like she kept all of the clothing. We like bought, I think it was like a crib and something else, and we tied like red string around everything to like keep the evil eye away. But also like we like sold the baby stuff to our friends for like $1, so we didn't actually own it. Oh yeah, there's like a lot of like superstition. I mean, I didn't have a baby shower. I didn't like show pictures to anybody. Like you just like
not until the baby's here.
Not until the baby's here, right? Like
you gotta knock on wood and like
maybe that was part of the reason I like didn't pack the bag and stuff, because it was like, oh yeah, there's like a lot of
that's unknowns. Right up there with like setting up the nursery, right? Like
totally.
Yeah.
So my mom, I remember we called my parents and like they had all the baby stuff. They had all the clothes, like all of the diapers, like all of it.
What are you guys doing later today?
Wait. And are your parents in New Jersey?
They're in New Jersey. Yeah.
We're going to need you guys to get on I-95 right now.
We're going to need to clear that calendar.
We could be home in 24 to 48 hours. Who knows? So hurry up.
What are you waiting for?
I mean, in good news, you don't really need that much stuff for like a newborn. So it probably would have been fine, right? Like the hospital had, And like one of the things also that we talked about with my reproductive psychiatrist, and this was like very hard for my first pregnancy, but that like I was not going to breastfeed. That was just like like if I wanted to stay on my mood stabilizing medication, that just like wasn't an option, or I could get off that medication. And like that, I don't know, like I had to weigh that out for maybe 10 seconds to be like, that sounds like a terrible idea. And like the other thing that she like pointed out to us is that like sleep is a big trigger, and that like I needed at least 5 contiguous hours of sleep at night, and that Alex was going to have to be in charge of night feedings. So like we did formula, we did night feedings. That was something like Georgetown. I was like, do not send a lactation consultant into my room. I don't want like, cause it's like a baby friendly hospital. Like right. Like my psychiatrist is like, you have to tell them like they are going to take that baby away, like after it's born, like when you need to get 5 hours of sleep. Like they can time the 5 hours, but they're going to have to cart the baby away. But anyway, like labor was long because I was like not dilated, like I mean like nothing, right? So like they had to.
Your body was like, we were told that 3 more weeks.
3 more weeks.
So
so did they have to do like the Cervidil and all of that first?
All of the things, which didn't. Yeah, and then like I think they did like a Foley bulb, which was.
Oh yeah, that's a.
Yeah, and they have to give you an epidural for that. So that was actually like when I reflect on all of my labor and delivery, the epidural really scared me. Like really, really scared me. I hated it. Yeah, I hate needles. Hate them. So because I was already like, I guess like in like the delivery thing, Alex was allowed to be with me for the epidural. Like I was crying. He was holding me. They like got it in. I didn't feel anything, all of the things. And then I was like in labor for like another 2 days. And they're like, we got to get her out. Like, I don't know. I was terrified. And in the end, I ended up having to have an emergency C-section after like, I don't know. We make jokes about how the amount of time I had spent in Georgetown Hospital and how I should just like have a wing with our names on it just for the sheer amount of time that we have been there for like labor and then like have to stay after like both C-sections. Emergency C-section with an awesome OB, not my OB, but she was like really cool. I was like, man, this lady's like awesome. And I remember like they had to take Naomi to do all the tests and like Alex had her, then they handed her to me. And I'm like, are you sure this is like really my baby? They could have like switched it they were like several weeks. I was like, I had this like anxiety about like, are we sure this is ours? And Alex and my parents were like, do you see her face? Like, what are you, but it was like it was something that I was like concerned about, but I was like so happy to have her because I worked so hard to get her. And like, I really, really, like, it just was, I felt like this immediate connection with her, but also had like pretty high anxiety around just like anything, like having people hold her. Like, I don't know. I was like a very anxious mom. I mean, I guess it was debilitating in some sense. Like, I remember like the first time I caught a cold when she was a newborn, I'm like posting all the mom boards. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm going to get my baby sick. Like, this is like 2015, right? So people were like, calm down. Like babies get sick. Like it's going to be fine. Stop spraying Lysol. I like went out to CVS and like bought all of their face masks, like all of them.
Wow.
That like I
so you're the problem.
I was the problem. But what was hilarious is that like COVID rolls around and I'm like going through the closet. I'm like, oh my God, we have like 500 masks here.
Like,
If anybody wants to know what happened.
We should sell these on eBay.
I didn't even do that. And I was like, oh my God, wow. I can't even remember that I bought them all.
Coincidentally, for the last 3 years, Mikah has not had to purchase masks. She's been hoarding them all.
Yes, I was hoarding all of the masks and like obsessively cleaning and just like worried about germs. And then like, I don't know, I feel like Alex and I started talking about having another kid and I was like, I'm not ready, man. Like I don't want to have to go through the fertility clinic again. My soul's like not getting my period. I don't want to go back on birth control because birth control makes me a little like woo woo. And like I had talked to my psychiatrist. I'm like, okay, spring is a bad time for me. Right. And Naomi is about like 17 months old or something. And I was like, well, like, I don't know. We were like trying to figure out the timing of like how to avoid having a newborn in the spring. And yeah, then like I was like, oh my God, my boobs are really hurting.
No. Oh no, the writing's on the wall.
The writing is on the wall. I'm like, everything smells bad. Like everything, like this is, yeah. And then the throwing up started and I was like, oh God, like, I was really trying to like be thoughtful.
Wait, 9 months from now, hold on.
It's hurting.
Is it spring? Crap.
Yeah. So I was like, cool, I'm pregnant, and was like, just like severely depressed. I like did not want to be pregnant. And I thought like my first pregnancy nausea was bad. Like this was like, I just could not function. I was so sick. I think I had to get like a couple of IVs. It was just terrible. On top of the fact, which then I got gestational diabetes, which is like not fun as it turns out. But like people with PCOS, like you're at higher risk for getting it. And I think there's like all of this like stigma around like, oh, only like fat people get gestational diabetes, which is like totally not true as it turns out. It just was like a really awful pregnancy. And like, I don't really remember that whole period of time. I just remember I was like very unhappy. My friend reminded me like when I told her I was pregnant, I was like in tears. I was like, I can't do this again. Like, I'm not ready for this. I don't want this. And my grandmother had passed away, who I was very, very, very close with, like just after Naomi was born. And I don't know, like that was like a really big life transition. So I was like in this deep, dark, terrible place. And I think my OB and psychiatrist probably like coordinated and I didn't fully understand because I was like thinking about it. Like they didn't even give me an option for going into labor. Like, I think it was like, you are going to have a planned C-section because we don't know what's going to happen. And yes.
Did you feel good about that?
I don't think I actually recognized what was happening. Like, I feel like I was like numb. Like a lot of like the depression was just kind of like feeling like really numb and just kind of like, let me get through this. Like
that's what's going to happen.
Maybe
I guess that's the plan.
Like, this is what's going to happen. I think I went to start seeing an acupuncturist during Suri's pregnancy because I was concerned. I think in Naomi, I got like a little hypomanic a couple of times and like had to take meds to kind of bring myself down. But like, let's see how we can stabilize myself more and like maybe like help with this anxiety a little bit and like the depression and like, who knows? It could have been that like I sat on a table for 45 minutes by myself in the quiet and like that helps me calm down a little bit once a week. But I didn't have any manic episodes. Like I was mostly depressed like for like 9+ months.
Oh, Mikah.
Yeah, it was like not fun. And like, I don't know, like it was just hard. Like I was so attached to Naomi and I was like, this doesn't feel good. Like I want to be with her and enjoy being with her. Like I was a stay-at-home mom and like, I love doing things with her. I like took 500 million photos of like every increment of like the things that were new and like, and I was like, oh, well, like after she was born, I was like really excited to have her. Like maybe that will happen with this one. Like maybe that will happen. So I go in for the planned C-section. Only this time, Alice could not be with me for the epidural. The rule of the hospital was that like, that was, and like Georgetown is a teaching hospital. So they had a medical student do it who like could not get the needle in. And I was freaking out. And like the nurse was like holding me. I was crying. And for some reason in that moment, like I didn't advocate for myself to be like, hey, get off of me. Like I want the real doctor. Yeah. But I just kind of like stuck it out for some reason. And I mean, this probably took maybe like 15 or 20 minutes. It felt like it took a day, right? The whole procedure, and then they brought Alex back. The whole thing was like very smooth. I hear the baby cry. They like hand her to me and I'm like, cool, someone take this baby back. And it just, I felt like completely detached. And I was like, who's like, this is my, like, no. And I remember my parents brought like Naomi in to come like visit us. And also was like Thanksgiving week, which was like it's not a good, don't plan to have a baby and be in the hospital Thanksgiving week. Cause like everybody is off. Like the nurses are not, like they're not at full capacity. It was like a really bad week to be at a hospital. And like something it just felt off. Like I was just like having like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I not connecting? Like, this is bizarre. And really just started having like really like intrusive negative thoughts and like really scared about like, do I deserve to be here? Like,
oh, like the guilt of not connecting had like,
right.
Mm-hmm,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was really terrible. It felt bad. And, you know, Naomi was like a crazy easy baby. She is not a crazy easy 7-year-old, but like, she was like,
why does that always happen?
What I know, you should like, yeah. Anyway, so Suri was like a crier. She like had this period of like, of course, wanting to cry from like 1:00 in the morning until like 4:00. I mean, there was like, she just like wasn't an easy baby, and she was like very like fidgety. You know, like she wasn't like someone who like wanted to like cuddle with you in the same way. So I don't know. I just had like a really hard time, and I remember like getting home, and I was like not happy. And my mom runs in like a nonprofit in New Jersey that deals with like if any kid like within like the New Jersey mental health is entered into the mental health care system, like my mom's organization partners with the parents to give peer support. So my mom was like, Mikah doesn't seem okay. Like, I think, you know, she had like, I had the psychiatrist, I had the therapist, I had all of the people, we set up a meal train. Like so many things were like set up for, like we were set up for success. I had friends to come check on me. I had friends that asked me to go for walks. Like I had all of the things, but it's very, right. So like, she was like, I think we need to find you some peer support. She like found a place. We sent the name to my psychiatrist. My psychiatrist like called this woman. It was like, I don't know, like divine intervention. She also had trouble bonding with one of her babies. And she had a support group that met at Holy Cross Hospital in Silver Spring, like 2 Tuesdays a month. Like I think, yeah, the first and third Tuesday of the month or something. And you know, when we called, obviously it was like the first Tuesday of the month. And then I had to wait like 2 weeks to go to the support group. So I had to like white knuckle through those 2 weeks with like, I don't know. Maybe I had like extra therapist support. I don't even remember how I got through those 2 weeks. It was terrible. And finally got to that support group, waited in the parking lot for like a really long time. Was like, I don't think I can go in. I don't think I can go in. Like, what is this even going to be like? And like went in, and thank God I got myself to that support group. I just remember like the people were really warm. Like Nadia, who ran the support group, was like, do you want to share? And I was like, nope. And maybe I then did, but then like, just like unleashed like all of this stuff about like, I'm not bonding with my baby. Like, why is it not the same as with my first? Like, I don't understand. Like, why am I this horrible mom? Like all of this stuff. And like, it was really cathartic and felt amazing to have like knowing eyes look at me and like shake their heads and be like, you are not alone, lady. Like you know, what you're going through is like not wrong, uncommon, like, you know.
And sometimes that just can make so much difference.
Huge.
Just to hear, because like you said earlier, you thought, what's wrong with me? And that's a question that many people ask, instead of like asking, like, wait a second, like what's going on for me? Like what circumstances are making this feel hard? I think the instinct of so many people is to say like, what am I doing? And it's
what am I doing wrong?
It's not that at all.
It totally, yes. Yeah. And like, it also was like, I have all of the supports, all of them. This is supposed to be my support system. If anything went wrong, why was I feeling like this? And I think having like a peer support group to like talk about those feelings saved my life. Cause I don't know, like it could be my psychiatrist could have, you know, probably said the same things in many ways. And I'm sure my therapist did also. But like having somebody to be like, I've been in your shoes, like you will be, I promise you, I am not sure how long this will take. You're going to get through it and you will be telling the story in past tense at some point. Like it just will happen. And I was like, okay, maybe.
Fast forward. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
She's on a podcast. What happened?
What happened, right? It was a long, long journey. My psychiatrist rightfully was like, I don't think we should like mess with your medication. So like, I don't want to be put, I was like, I'm not being put on SSRIs. Like, it's just not, that's not the answer. I'm not doing that. So it took about like 9 months for me to get to a point to want to hold Surrey.
Oh, wow.
It was a really, really long time. And yeah, we were in New Jersey when it happened, and she was like a bad napper. I constantly had to hold her for naps. It was not fun. I didn't enjoy any of it. But then I remember she like fell asleep on me, and I was like, this feels so good. Like, it feels natural. And I was like, oh my God, this is the first time I've wanted to hold her. Like, how, like, and I just started crying, and Alex was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, this is the first time I've wanted to hold her. I've been looking for this connection for months. I mean, I just remember like, I used to like leave places, even to go to the support group. I remember one time, like, I think there was like, it was like Super Bowl party or something that Alex was at with like the girls. And I was like, bye, like Alex, bye, Naomi. Didn't say goodbye to Surrey, got to the support group, and I'm like, I am a terrible mom. Like, I didn't, like, you know? And they're like, no, like, you're not a terrible mom. And like, a lot of this is like, like she has a sister who dotes on her, a father who dotes on her. You have a community, like, she's going to feel love. And like, my psychiatrist said, like, part of your not feeling bonded with her is like a symptom of the depression. Like, that's what this is. So let's like get you through this. I promise you are going to get better. And it did.
Yeah. Mikah, I'm curious throughout all of your pregnancy and postpartum, kind of like the perinatal period, over the span of having 2 babies, did you know about PSI at all? Was that resource given to you, or how did you find PSI?
Yeah. So
Nadia knew about PSI.
That's right. That is right. Nadia and Emily were the 2 facilitators for the support group, were both trained facilitators through PSI. I did not know that until like, I was like, oh my God, you guys, you gave me my life back. Like, tell me how I can like, I used to, even when I was starting to feel better, I would still go to group. I loved hearing people's stories. I just did. Like, yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, I love like connected. They were my people, but also like, I don't know. I like love listening to people and hearing what they have to say and hearing people's perspectives about life and like all of these things. Even from when I was younger and was like working at like a Holocaust and Genocide and Human Rights Education Center, because like that was a lot of like telling personal stories to like educate people, like make people real and not just like a number. So I think it was something I was already like connected to and felt really strongly about. And I was like, tell me how I can like help. Like, I just want moms to know they're like not alone. And like, I want to hear them, and I'm like here for anybody who wants to talk. And I don't know. I don't even remember. So like, right, they were like, we were trained through Postpartum Support International. I think maybe I was on a social media block for like a really long time after, like, I just like cut myself off. I was like, nope, like deleted everything. I was like, I cannot go on. Like everybody's making like the politics, my perfect family looks like this kind of stuff. And I was like, I just can't. But I think eventually, like when I went back on, I started following Postpartum Support International, and the group had ended because like Nadia was like 8 years out. Like her older daughter was 8 years old, and like she and Emily were like, do you and this other woman that was in group with me want to take over? We just like couldn't make it work. I was like, I would love to, but like I don't have the capacity for this right now. Mm-hmm. And then 2020 hit, and I guess like PSI had posted about the peer mentorship program, and I was like, what is this?
Tell me more.
Tell me more. I could be a mentor for somebody and hear their story and like talk to them about stuff. You're joking. And applied for the mentorship program. And there was one peer, my first peer dropped out of the program, which I think is not uncommon, and then had like 6 peers like after that. And then was like, how can I get involved even more? And then like the bipolar support group was like publicized, and I was like, I'm going to be a group facilitator for this group.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. I had never been in any room, let alone, I mean, a virtual room with that many people that have bipolar disorder. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm not alone. Like that also was like not that I ever thought like my symptoms of bipolar disorder were like this made up thing, but I was like, wow, these symptoms are real. Like other people have them.
They're normal to all of us who have it.
Yes, they are common. And like, I don't know, maybe I knew like a handful of bipolar people like throughout my life, but that was like, wow, this is awesome. And like bipolar disorder is, I think like, I don't know, like this was, it was something that not like, I didn't like publicize a lot, but for sure, like with work up until then, it was like a secret, right? Like I would like have to secretly take, like personal days to like recoup or like, deal with like sleep stuff if I didn't get enough sleep or whatever. And then I was like, how can I get more involved in PSI? And somehow was like directed to Jen in some way. I don't remember exactly the route that happened, but it was like the first time I was ever to be like, this is my story and I'm here because I have bipolar disorder. And like, I remember going to my psychiatrist and telling her all this. And she's like, so something that you thought was like a hindrance and like a bad thing your entire life is really your superpower. I was like, oh my God, you're totally right. Yeah, it is.
Basically.
Yeah. Right. Like I thought I had wanted to work with help seekers, but then got directed to Jen to like work with chapter leaders across the country. And I was like, wow, this actually complements like my skill set with work that I had previously. And I was like, I am all about this in 1,000%.
Are you open to doing a little quick lightning round?
Totally.
Well, if you are willing to do that, then let's get started, shall we? Okay, Mikah, besides this podcast, what is your favorite podcast?
So I have to be honest that like podcasts to me seem like news related. So I think the one that I listen to actually nearly every day is probably, or sometimes I take breaks from it, is The Daily, the New York Times, The Daily, Michael Barbaro, who has my second favorite podcast voice.
Who? Second. Oh,
it's interesting. You're my first. Yeah, but I really
get out of here.
I really love Michael Barbaro's voice. And then we listen to Wow in the World. Yeah, so like we listen to that in the car sometimes.
Do you prefer a book in your hand or a book in your ear?
Okay, I love both of them. So one of the things PMADS, I would say, took away from me is that I've always been like a really voracious reader and like constantly was reading. Yeah. And it took like a long time to get back to a point in my life where I could sit down and read a whole book and like I used to read multiple books at a time. And I am happy to report I am back to that point. I am like in the middle of like maybe like 3 or 4 different audiobooks, have a stack of books on my nightstand, just depending on like what I want to read and kind of like pick things up and like eventually get through all of them. But I'm like kind of like back to where I was pre-kids with my reading, which is like very exciting. That was something I was like, what do you mean? Like, how can I not focus on this awesome book? Like, what is wrong with me?
What are the top 3, either audio or in your hand medium books right now?
Like that I'm listening to right now. I'm listening to Michelle Obama's The Light We Carry on audiobook.
That's good. Yes. And I love hearing her voice too.
I love hearing her voice. I find it really comforting, but also like it's real. Like it's real. Like it feels real. Like, I don't know. We've been through a lot as like a country in the past few years, and it's good to like figure out like what process that and also like find your light and like where you belong. I also started listening to this audiobook by a comedian. Her name is Latasha Leggero. I think I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The World Deserves My Children, which is like hilarious. And she went through IVF. She converted to Judaism. Like, I don't know. I think, lives in LA and like lives a totally different lifestyle and is more privileged than I would ever know it to be. So like there's some things that I don't relate to, but some of it is just so funny. Like she's just really funny and like had a pandemic baby. Of however awful things were, I feel like she has made it hilarious. And that's been a fun book to listen to. During the pandemic, I read all of the Bridgerton books, like the prequels, all of them. Oh yeah, love them. I have them on audiobook to like, I fall asleep to them. They're awesome. Cause I'm like, I already know this is a happy ending. I just want to like.
Samantha Reeves could talk to you about the Bridgerton series. She also likes that and recommended that. Not likes it. Yeah. Loves it.
I had never read romance novels until the pandemic because I was like, I can only, that's like a thing.
That's an easy thing to fly through.
Totally. Really easy. Like always has a happy ending. So that's like a good thing.
What do you like to do for a quick mental break, Mikah?
I do love reading books. I think that's like at night, especially like during insomnia season. I don't want to watch TV because that's like overload on my brain. So I go to reading books or listening to audiobooks or, I mean, like my real mental break is going swimming. Who are we kidding? Like that's like,
I was just going to say
open water.
Yeah. In the open water, in the pool. Like I like that. I don't know, like when people, I'm sorry, Emily, I do not like yoga. But like when people talk to me about like how yoga makes their like their minds kind of like connected to their body, like that's what swimming does for me. And that really is my biggest mental break. And like things that like I went into the pool, like thinking about, or like overturning in my head, like I come out and I'm like, oh, good, man. Like I'm all good. It's good. Like life is good. We're good.
Mikah, do you have a favorite parenting hack?
A favorite parenting? Oh man. 5 and 7 are like hard ages, particularly my 7-year-olds. And they're like people, right? So I feel like when I was little, my mom was like, this is like, she wouldn't like consult me about things and we would just have to do whatever. But I have to say, like, I think I have figured out with my very demanding 2 children that like I have to set expectations for them, and like, and it's a way of like setting them up for success. So like we have like a very busy weekend day. You know, I go through like what we're going to do and like make them part of the conversation and have them feel like they are people that have, maybe not always, but like have say in like what is happening. And like, that is very helpful.
Agency.
They have agency. Yeah, no, it's true. And like also teaching them, like, sometimes we just have to pivot. I think that's been like the most helpful thing for me in this time of life of them being like, this is what to expect.
Yeah. Well,
something might change. Yeah.
For kids and adults alike, it is a little bit scary and jarring when you don't know what to expect, right? So that makes sense. Can you tell us one way that you'll give yourself a little radical love today, Mikah?
Oh man, this radical love thing.
Is it radical?
Is it radical? I don't know.
Part?
So it's not going to happen today, but okay. For Emily knows this because she lives not far from me. It has been raining a lot, which when it rains, open water swimming is canceled. Is it raining right now? Don't tell me that.
No, it's sunny. It's beautiful.
Okay. I was like, oh my God, no. I'm in the basement right now, but I don't want to see. So open water swim practice, because it has not rained. All of the good vibes for not raining, but I'm going to have practice on Sunday. And that is like, I leave I leave at like early in the morning. Practice starts around 9. I am done at 11:30. It is like an hour away from my house. So like, it is not even, that's like what I am looking for.
Chunk of the day.
A whole chunk of the day. Yeah.
Time. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I have necessarily something planned for radical love today, but that is my Sunday that I'm like really looking forward to.
Absolutely radical.
You're plotting future radical love. I dig that.
Yes.
And that
you
is
have to plot it. Yeah.
That is radical love.
That is something also you have to schedule your radical love time.
Yep.
Final question. How do you take your water? You have been drinking water. Do you have a preferred method for hydration?
So I've been trying to make sure that I drink 90 ounces of water a day to like
make sure that
I'm terrified that if I need to make sure that I'm hydrated. Like, this is how I make sure I don't get cramps in the water when I go swimming for long periods of time.
I would like to be part of this goal setting plan.
Let's do it. We can be an accountability partner. Let's do it.
Wait, can I come?
So
you can come too.
Okay. Yes.
I drink 3 of these Nalgene's a day. And like, I don't know. I like my water cold. I do not like lukewarm water. So I'll like dump a bunch of ice in it and then just keep sipping it all day.
Well, Mikah, thank you. Thank you for coming on the podcast today and sitting with us and sharing so much. Man, we could sit here all day, but thank you so much for sharing. And we are so appreciative of you being here.
Thank you for coming, for sharing your story.
We're sending each other visual hearts.
Thanks, ladies.
Thanks for tuning in to the I Am One podcast. Check out today's show notes where we'll drop links to all the important things that we mentioned in this episode. Please consider sharing about our show on social media and following and rating our show wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. It only takes a minute of your time and, well, that'll help with our collective mission of bringing resources and local support to folks worldwide. From everyone here at PSI, thanks again for listening.